Hey everyone, I just want to welcome you to Aldea's online community. My name is Jake Haber, and if you're joining us for the first time, I want to let you know that we are an inclusive, open-minded spiritual community located in Tucson, Arizona, for people of any faith background or no faith at all. Our motto is love, period, which means love is our highest value as we engage the mystery of life together. If you appreciate what we do and you want to support our work, you can give a tax-deductible donation by heading to our website, aldeaspiritualcommunity.org. Rob Bell is a very influential figure, particularly for those of us who have gone through spiritual shifts. He's an author, speaker, podcaster, and I was just so thrilled to have the opportunity to chat with him about his newest endeavor, creating a fictional series, starting with his newest book, Where Did You Park Your Spaceship? We've been in this series called which has really been about how we arrange ourselves as people. And that's included topics and themes such as religion, church, God, and approaching inner work like our inner shadow. So it was perfectly fitting for us to talk to Rob about how we arrange our world and our lives and giving ourselves permission to rearrange it. I hope you enjoy, and as always, I want to encourage you, you can subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel, but for now, enjoy this uninterrupted conversation with Rob Bell. Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy to talk to you.
I really appreciate this, and I just want to let you know, I'm here in Tucson, and it's been about exactly a year that I've had this opportunity to come in and lead this community that is just so incredibly special to my heart. And this community has existed long before me. And many of the people in our community have really been inspired by a lot of your work. And then when I came in, anyone who hadn't already heard of you, they've for sure heard of you now. So I think they're going to be really excited to have this opportunity to see you and get to know you. So yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask one setup question before we get into the book. Yeah. And really it's this. As someone who's followed you for a while, I've felt that throughout the different stages of your career, you've really invited your audience to participate and be a witness to these different transformation moments for you. And I've noticed that recently you've talked a lot about how you're kind of in the midst of this new leap, this new evolution in your own life, in your career. And I'm just curious, what about it feels different than previous times? And maybe what about it feels similar? Because you've done your reps. So yeah.
Yeah, what a great question. Because in some senses, you're following something in your life. You can kind of articulate it and kind of can't. Like you came to this community, you had a change, a year ago. You can kind of, in your Jake-ness, describe why you said yes to it. It's also got elements of mystery to it. Do you know what I mean? Yep. There's a rational, yeah, of course. I teach public school. I'm a therapist. I work for this company because my family has had this company. It matters to me to care. Like we can. There are elements to which we can rationally go, yeah, I've always had this particular love or bent that direction or talent or whatever. And then there's also, I don't know, something within me said yes. Something here in the center of my being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in one sense, I just always been following where it was headed next. I mean, I can look back on like moments of, oh my God, like our connection with the earth is like central to being human. Like the soil, food, our being in our bodies, obviously to care for the planet. Like, like moments of like, whoa, giant, or just the insanity of war. Like, wait, don't be on the side that says this is just a necessary thing that has to happen.
Mm.
Like, where's the imagination? Like that kind of breakthrough moments when you, and then also there are these moments that are like bigger almost. Like they're just a continuation of what you've been doing, and yet all of a sudden you're moving to Tucson or you're like literally getting a new job. So yeah, this feels like more of the same, and a it is on some level a whole new thing.
Do you feel like you got a
Yeah,
new job?
there's some, and I've never used like the word career or job, always seemed funny to me. They just never, but then suddenly like 2 years ago, well, actually, when I started writing this book, I was like, I would like a new job. And I even started talking in the morning. I'd be like, I'm going to go to my new job, which I've never. So sometimes you like, all of a sudden, new language just appears that you're using that you never used before. That's, yeah, all of a sudden, just how to talk about it. Like it's a new, my Kristen often talks about it like it's a new timeline. Like the old, you left the old timeline, you're in a new timeline. It's all different. Yeah, so that's what this feels like. Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, I love that. And I I think that for those of us who have been following you, we feel that too. And so this book, loved it. And there was something interesting for me reading it, and we'll get into the specifics so that I can kind of explain more of what's the characters
Good
and different
luck.
things.
Good
But,
luck.
well, I'll try. But there's something, this overarching theme that really struck me throughout this book. And you use the word arrangements. You talk about the arrangements,
Yeah.
but you also, throughout the whole book, I feel like there's this sense of this question of like, how are we arranging things in our lives, in communities? And then I realized, oh my gosh, Rob's been talking about the arrangements the whole time, but in this book, you're able to get at it from a new angle. So I'm curious what that word means to you. And then especially now as you're a world builder.
Yeah, well, it's funny in the one of the interesting things in the story is it's about these other planets in the future and these new sort of ways that people arrange themselves. And it's so interesting to write about just to create a whole world. But like every interview, everybody like you and I get into the conversation, and it's about this world, weirdly enough. Like architecture and sustainability, all those sorts of things. You just get right to them, but you get to it through a fictional world. And the arrangements, I just like think about next year where there's going to be a presidential election. If politics was just swapped out for the word arrangements, like how do we arrange ourselves? Like how do we do healthcare? How does the money, like sometimes just you swap out a word and suddenly you're like, oh, that's right, because the water does come through the faucet. I assume your listeners, people in your community took showers and washed their dogs or washed dishes. Like, how did that water come out of the faucet? Somebody somewhere is in charge of the water, something, commission, brigade, council. Well, where'd they get the water from? Well, why did they decide it costs this much? How come if I go over this much usage, I pay this much over usage fee? Like, that's all what basically the word political. How do the citizens arrange themselves? So it's like you can take some of the charge and like the people who are just against politicians. Well, we need like responsible, kind, honest people who actually have like a sense of public service about them to be in charge of the arrangements. We actually need that. So I just imagine you can almost see it coming, like a whole rebirth of how, like this whole present system just seems to be melting down in a number of ways.
Well, and when you talk about the arrangements, there's also, particularly in this book, there's an implication of the rearrangements and how are we going to do it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And I actually want to reference, so you came out with a couple plays earlier this year, I believe, or last year.
Last fall. Yeah.
And I really love them. And particular after the end of We'll Get Back to You, I remember just sitting in my hammock and like teary-eyed, but like I have the difficulty crying. I don't let myself cry. So I'm like, why can't I let this happen? But anyway, Viva is the lead, kind of one of the main characters of that book. And I think of her as someone who comes in and really is kind of looking at the arrangements going, why does it have to be this way?
Yeah. Right.
And then I saw in your new book, a lot of the characters are kind of have a similar energy to them, especially someone like Dil Tud. And it's so I'm curious, like what inspired those characters.
Right. The world is far more malleable than most of us ever realized. And when people have like, think of how many people now are talking about despair, about where's the world headed. I went doom scrolling on Instagram. The fate of the world is something a lot of people want to talk about. Now more than ever, being very clear on how actually flexible and bendable the clay is, actually quite soft. So, like, what is it, 1770 to 1870, roughly in 100-year span, most governments outlawed slavery, which was just baked into how human beings lived for most of our history. Sudden, for a good chunk, all of a sudden, in like a little narrow window, most nations were like, oh, no, that's wrong. Can't do that. Or you think about seatbelts. People didn't wear seatbelts, and all of a sudden there was data about car crashes. I grew up, there weren't seatbelts. Suddenly there were seatbelts. Then it was, you would get a ticket if you didn't have a seatbelt. And now if you get in a car and you don't put a seatbelt on, you feel naked. So how did hundreds and millions of people change behavior that fast? So human beings are actually astoundingly adaptable when in certain settings. And then these systems, like imagine if in next year's presidential primaries, imagine if every candidate, when they started speaking on the screen, which CNN could do, on the screen was listed all the corporations they received donations from. Like, it's a representative democracy. So we could all Google that if we wanted, but let's have, what if the TV just saved us a step and just listed it so that we just knew when this person was speaking? That's nothing but facts.
Yeah.
That's nothing, not even really an agenda. It's just this helps us understand. So who knows, like, think about Patagonia just gave their company, the family, to the earth. You know, like they just gave it. And then on Black Friday a couple of years ago, they took out an ad, please don't buy our products on the day after Thanksgiving. Please bring them in and we'll repair them for free. So you have companies, you have educators doing things in all sorts of ways that haven't been done. And like, I do these things in Ojai where people come, or I go to places and sit with people who have a question about their life. And I'm telling you, Jake, how often the breakthrough and the clarity comes when the person identifies an assumption they had that is just an assumption that they thought was an absolute. I've watched it so many times when the person's like, wait, I could just live in less square footage and then I'd have less bills. Like, they just thought, oh, you're right. Oh my God, I could. Sometimes it's something super basic. Other times it's like, oh, even company owners who are like, wait, I could give a big chunk of my company to my employees. I could give them ownership. I could just do that. I'm the CEO. Isn't that why I'm the CEO? I've seen bonkers stuff happen where people realize, oh, we could just do this different. There's a restaurant down the street from my house that gave 70% of the, someone was just telling me 70% of the owners gave 70% of the ownership of the restaurant to the kitchen staff.
Hmm.
Just did it. The place is still thriving. So you just start to look around you at the world and all of these, well, this is just how it is. All the interesting stuff happens when someone goes, is it? Sure about that? You sure?
And there's that sort of clarity that comes when you realize, oh, we're just free to rearrange as we wish. And
that's what I love about that word arrangements is that, like, I love that you rearrangements.
There's, and that clarity and that rearrangement. I feel like you were able to approach it in a really special way in this book, because you open the book with the earth was brown balled, the earth is no more. And I found in reading it that it really created this frame where you were able to talk about what did work about the arrangements and what didn't work about the arrangements in this really unique way. And so I'm curious, the freedom that you felt in writing about the earth in the past tense.
Yeah. Because the thing that's too terrifying to speak has way more power than the stuff that you can say. Like a family, like if dad's an alcoholic, that's the one thing no one can say. It's terrifying. But if someone says it, by the way, everybody, we all know dad's an alcoholic. The system, now something's going to happen. Now, like the thing that you're, and any system that's haunted by the things that everybody's agreed that we can't talk about. And it was so compelling to me because of this very real thing in the air about the planet right now. What if there's something about the storytelling that was the worst thing that could happen did. It was like almost like a release valve. And then Earth, there's like and then Heen has this the main character has this. Well, he's the main character until he isn't. Let's just gradually give away the story to your people. It's almost like he has this fondness and nostalgia for the Earth. What I just noticed is how it created this deep love and an even deeper love for the Earth, and an even deeper, like, it's almost like if you want to get to living differently on the Earth, just tell a story about how your worst fears came true, and it's like loosens everybody up in a way to like really be imaginative.
I love that.
Yeah, there's something about that. But you're right. It's something very. It's like you think about like a long, like partners who have been together for a while, or a marriage, and one of them there's some issue that just keeps coming around, and one of them one day says, well, if we're going to stay together, we're going to need to get to the root of this issue. And they're like, wait, one of us just said if we're going to stay together, the thing that has never been spoken was spoken. But weirdly enough, if you're just watching that, you're like, oh yeah, now they're in good shape. So weirdly, the thing that's like, oh yeah, that's not the thing. Is good. They're going to stay together, right? They're going to stay together, right? Someone says, well, if we're going to stay together, suddenly frees them up to actually get at the stuff with greater freedom and honesty. Yeah, there's something very counterintuitive in that is really compelling to me.
Speaking of being freed up, I want to talk about Heen, your main character. You like that transition there?
Well done.
So, spaceship is in the title of the book. Where'd you park your spaceship? And there were two moments that really struck me about Heen and the spaceship. The first is when he first boards a spaceship, period. And then the second is when he's given his own spaceship. And I was thinking about, like, I'm sure what he felt, these moments in life where for him, this whole world is opened up to him that he knew about, but he didn't ever think he would have access to.
Right. Like
You know,
he finds out that he's gradually dawning on him that he grew up in like kind of in the middle of nowhere, but he never had or his uncle called it a backwater, and he's like, yeah. It's like dawning on him. Oh, I come from like a really small world.
mm-hmm. And then it's like once he's given the keys to this ship, it opens up this whole new world for him and this whole new life. And I think about my life and I think about my spaceship moments where it's like, oh, there's a galaxy out here that I can explore. You know, thankfully, like your work was a spaceship for me in my journey, and I appreciate that. I'm curious, what were some spaceships for you?
Oh, that is really something. I remember having dinner in Argentina in 2002-ish with a whole table full of dudes and spiritual leaders. And they're questioning me about US foreign policy and an impending invasion of Iraq. And I'm seeing America from their perspective. And that had like a spaceship, like, oh, you're the citizen of a very particular phenomenon. So yeah, I can think like that moment. I can remember being in a hotel room in England, and I can't figure out how to get the lights on. And I'm like, this is, what, do they not have lights in their hotel rooms? What kind of country is this? First time I went to England. And it takes me forever to realize that my room key goes in a slot by the front door. And then like my slow brain goes, oh, that way you can't leave lights on. Oh, that's so that electricity, when you leave the room, oh, hotels in England are thinking about electricity use. They've built in a way, oh, they don't have this where I live. There's a consciousness here or an awareness that isn't where I live. Oh, yeah, this, yeah, and even and a huge and ironically, a huge one was writing this book, because a lot of my work for 30 years, like teaching has like explaining is a particular kind of energy. Like teaching, like pulling it apart. This follows this, follows this. Here's the pattern. That parsing of babies over here, bathwater's over here. And this story, which rushed into my life, and it kept almost like this buoyant, persistent invitation to follow it and write it. It was like you have to completely set aside explaining, because stories where there's a point, like a movie where it's too on the nose, we're just like, so heavy-handed. We're so bored. But a story where we don't really have a sense of where it's headed, oh my God, we get caught up in it. And there's something about this story that was like, you have no points to make. There's no thing you're trying people to get. You're following this guy, and he's meeting these people, and this stuff has happened to him, and he's numb. He's flying around from planet to planet, and on this one random planet, apparently, he starts to like feel, but when he starts to feel for the first time in decades, mm-hmm. It's not like joy and hope and euphoria. It's supernatural irritation that this guy named Dill Tud. Yeah, that was huge. Yeah, I can think of writers, artists. Yeah, I can think of multiple spaceship moments. Oh yeah, that's a great question. I should think more about that. when the whole game changed.
Yeah, sounds like a good decentering, maybe, or a destabilization.
Absolutely. absolutely. I have a there's a gentleman that I meet with once a week who's 80, who's become like a Mr. Miyagi
Mm.
mentor to me, who's I'm assuming years from now I'll look back on this year and meeting with him
Mm-hmm.
once a week. I can already feel how many ways that sitting with him once a week has changed,
Yeah,
shifted things in me. Yeah,
I love that.
very tender, that question. That's a good one. That's really powerful.
With Heen, your main character, as he goes through this journey and then sort of midway through the book, after being given the spaceship, after having one decentering, he's now really great in his job because he has this aptitude to be aware of things. But it seems like he's operating purely from the head, which is what he's supposed to be
Right,
doing.
right.
But I feel like a lot of times your work has invited people to look at things and go, okay, there's a way a thing is on paper, but then there's also a way a thing feels or a way a thing
Mm.
resonates on a deeper
Mm-hmm.
level. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what is it about Tud? What is it about Furus that inspires and decenters him to kind of go back more into the heart?
Right, because I love how he keeps. It's almost like he's beginning to realize. I think I'm stuck in my head and quite numb, and I actually think that's why I'm so good at my job. And like he talks about he goes back for these uptakes, like almost like trainings, and he's like, I look around and I'm like, I think I'm the best. I think I'm the best Series 5 in the universe. I think I'm these chumps. It's almost like he's like, these chumps. I think I'm the best in the world at my job, and I'm beginning to realize that might not be a good thing.
Mm.
I might be good at this for some, like I might be numb at some level. So I mean, the lineage that I grew up in the Christian tradition and the Protestant tradition. Its roots are Martin Luther putting 95 theses on a door, like lists,
Wow.
propositions, beliefs, which are like, how is the furniture in your head arranged? So I think from a young age, it's almost like trying to get into my body in a world that's so valued. I mean, I think about like I don't know where you grew up, but how you get into a good college in taking the SAT, which is sit in a room for 3 hours and fill in these little ovals with a pencil, and that was considered intelligence.
Mm.
And then so and so went to that college; they're really smart. Yeah, they can't change a flat tire, but they're really intelligent. So I think I think I'm like a lot of people who grew up in a world that so valued a particular narrow slice of intelligence. You can see it all around us. Words like intuition and embodiment, trusting our guts, um, all of the ways, Wim Hof breathing methods, cold plunges, eating from the farmer's market. You can see people all around us learning again how to live in our bodies. So yeah, it's like it's all these other planets and these characters who have these jobs that are just made up, and yet it's all reflective of what's happening
Yeah.
around us. Yeah, and he starts to feel, and he starts entering into these conversations. He starts to care about these people around him, and he's like, I never would have said anything in this conversation. I would have just like watched it and been it's like a whole. It's almost like he's like been in 2D, and now he's realizing there's 3D and there's 4D and there's 5D and he's been in black and white, and he's realizing color, and it's not always comfortable because even the way the body stores certain things, traumas and such. It's like we're all waking up to this.
Yeah, this relearning and new way of kind of approaching and perceiving what is wisdom, what is intelligence. I actually really found that even early on in the book, particularly, you have this great section of the book that takes place on the planet Yorch. And I really love the part of the book that takes place there, because it's basically where some of these characters are going to kind of be trained, so to speak, into this new career, but really what they're being invited to, I think, is a whole new way of seeing. And in particular, my favorite scene, maybe of the whole book, is when they're each given an amp and a guitar and a pedal, and they're it's like, it's very Rick Rubin. It's like, how does it feel? Not how proficient are you? And I'm curious, what is it that you feel like they're being taught on Yorch?
Oh, right. And I love it how when Vo, who's giving them instructions, he's like, but I don't play guitar. And she's like, I don't think I said anything about playing guitar. I said making a noise. She makes this distinction as if like, what are you talking about? He's like standing there holding the guitar going, but I don't know how to play guitar. And she's like, why would that even be your question?
Yeah.
And also the sense that they know they're being they're assuming probably they're being evaluated for aptitudes. Mm-hmm. But I also love, as the reader, you're like, what aptitude would this be? Yeah. Like non-music noise making. Mm-hmm. So even that sense of you're being watched and evaluated, but at some point he sort of gives up trying to figure out, what's this thing we're doing? Mm-hmm. How am I doing? Or when they all do that one game and then they go out and they discuss it and they realize half of them had interpreted the rule this way. And they're like, oh, wait, we were all playing that game and had completely different scoring systems. Mm-hmm. So I love just the confusion of, they wear down the mind's ability to game out. Like when you do those like personality tests and it's like, do you like starting conversations with strangers in public places? And you're like going like, I think this is probably this question's probably about whether I'm an extrovert or not. Just guessing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I loved that these people in charge of the arrangements, when they have these, whatever they are, recruits, mm-hmm. It's like whatever these things they have them passing through, I was really drawn to just having a whole succession of things where we'd be like, what in the world is this training you for?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just sort of scrambling all of the aptitudes and stuff, and the guitar pedal thing especially, like what is going on there? And then one of the women is like super good at it, and then they're all like, wow, obviously she had a head start, and she's like, yeah, no, I've never seen a guitar.
Which maybe worked in her favor, because right. I know, like, as a musician, I've found that it's almost like sometimes it's like the more I know, the more that gets in the way.
Yes. Right. Like, and she picks up the guitar stand, sort of Sigur Rós style, mm-hmm. and plays it like a bow. And they're all like, wait, you can, yeah. That was available to us. It's like he's at every step, when he's bringing his sort of his mental furniture to situations, there's just a slight tweak where somebody's going, oh, or you could do it this way. Wait, wait, I can see the stars? I never have slept in seeing the stars. I slept in a hole in the ground my whole life. Like, I just love that feeling of the world just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And or when she tells him he'll have his own spaceship, and she keeps talking, and he's like, I wanted to pretend like I was just listening to her, but inside I was going, I get my own spaceship. I get my own spaceship. I get my own. So there's like a 9-year-old boy in there, mm-hmm. who's trying to be like kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with this, but he's just also, which is how I feel most of the time.
Yeah. I love it.
You're a musician, so you know what I'm talking about. Like, you gotta like pay car insurance and, register to vote. And then there's a part of you, it's just like, oh my God, these drums sound amazing on this song. Yeah. Can we just spend the next 2 days talking about the drums on this song.
Yeah. The reverb.
Please, everybody, can we just
Well, and creatively, I'm interested in the way that, through this book, you're able to build your world, paint these pictures and these images, make these scenarios, such as these different like learning experiences they go through, and just all these different interactions. And I'm curious what it feels like to maybe do things that might not have worked in your other, your more nonfiction books, or maybe even like on stage. Were you able to create like feelings and emotions that maybe you felt like, oh, I've wanted to figure out how to communicate this, but it was easier now because I could just do it with my characters?
Right. And even like the in some, oh, what a great, that question's really helpful to me. A lot of it was a feeling and a sense of a more opaque, vague sense of where this next part of the story went, and then almost like subconscious, unconscious following it, and then looking back on the previous 10 pages, or being in like the guitar scene, and then they go into what's in the almost, I like literally, and what's in this tube? Oh, there are these guitars. They're each, and there's 6 circular rugs. There, and like the scene where Nunez gives the bread speech at the school. I'm telling you, Jake, I was like it's probably 3 or 4 days just in that scene. Almost like what I didn't know what she was going to do. It just sensed like he just couldn't, the social cues about what lines was asking him. It's like, and then he gets there and realizes what he said yes to. And she's like a step ahead of him as usual. And she does this thing, but I didn't know like what speech she'd give until she's in the ravine. And then it's a very surreal, trippy, like merging sort of experience where you're like watching the scene and typing it. And who does she pull out of the crowd? Kixie Flugers. Yeah, of course she does. And why is Kixie a controversial choice? Oh, let's have Lines tell Heen, because Kixie used to be with Dune, and then Dune would like now I'm just like a high school Netflix high school movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was so different than my previous work, where this is what I'm talking about. Here's my first point. Here's my second point. Oh, the first point, let me just make sure we're all clear on the first point. Here's another example of the second point. Here's what I just said. Here's an image. Here's a metaphor. Here's a statistic. Here's some archaeology. Here's what I just said.
Yeah.
Which was great. It's just, this was something else. This was like some whole new territory. Going back to what you said about, because she doesn't know how to play the guitar, she's able to make it sound like a bird. There was something about the freedom to just follow the story, which had like almost like this very childlike permission. Can I just follow the story? Is that okay? Is that okay? Can I just, or when like Nord writes a play, and the play is called What's a Nucka, which is the name of a play that I remember sitting there thinking, what's the name of the play? Oh, it's called oh my God, Rob, seriously? That's so on the nose. Yeah. You wrote a play that's published called, so there's a character in this story that writes a play that actually exists that people could go get and read. And it was like, I was joking with somebody yesterday. It was like somewhere NPR is rolling its eyes. Like, oh God, it's so like, but there's something was like, yeah, this is how we're playing this.
Yeah.
Like this is how we're doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Apparently this is how I do this. We double down on the strangeness.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost like when you have a dream and you're thinking like, that went a weird way, and then you realize, oh, that was all me. Every character in there, that was all me. I imagine having this down on paper, you're able to almost like experience different parts of yourself that maybe are new and exciting.
Absolutely. Like in dream interpretation, they'll talk about, yeah, every character in the dream is reflecting back to you some aspect of yourself. And I sensed that this was different than other things I'd done, that if I like put it out there and then like talk to people like you, like did interviews about it, I had this sense that that would be as a whole new experience. And it has been like just talking to you already in whatever 40 minutes, that has been like it's been so enjoyable. And so every single interview, the questions, I'm like, I didn't see that. What a great, I had wanted, I thought, is there an entirely different way to think about making something and sharing it with the world? Even like, well, you know, do interviews and promote it. Ugh, I don't want to promote it, but talk. But Kristen said to me early on, like at dinner, I would tell her what Dill Tud did that day, and she'd have no context for it. She hadn't read anything. She'd just be like, she's like just casual observation. You love to talk about your characters, like love, and something about that. It was like it was already baked into it. Was, oh, this will be totally different. This will be, and it has been, like talking about it, and every interview the person has seen things. Like you saying your favorite scene, I was like, oh, this will be interesting, was the guitar. Not one person has mentioned the guitar scene. But then there's somebody who's like, can I please get a t-shirt that says livin', laughin', loafin' from like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's something about, and there was one interview where I was talking about, there's something, you know, isn't it? I was like, I just think it's so compelling. I just love how Heen starts to notice that he's really good at his job, which might be because he's numb. And the interviewer, like 20 minutes in, he just stops. And he's like, I'm sorry. You're talking about these characters like you didn't come up with them. And yeah, I'm telling you, Jake, it's like it's all new territory.
The characters are revelatory for you, which is that's where it's exciting. You know?
I don't understand what's happening. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and I can see like even Easter eggs in this for future books.
Yeah,
there are things where I'm like, why does she da 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 da? Oh, I got, like some of them I'm like, oh, I know what that is in the future, and other ones I'm like, oh, I guess at some point I'll know why in this book this character does that.
Okay, speaking of Easter eggs, I just have to ask this. This is for me. one of my favorite. This is like my other favorite part of the book is I love that both Bobby Freelance and Ziga May just randomly at different times are just like holding these little pop-up clinics with different people in the community. So they'll just walk by and Bobby's just hanging out with people and reconciling, or she's just teaching. They're just, and I'm curious just if that's an Easter egg, what that is. I love it.
Well, first off, when I love your question. I love partway through, I was like, God, Rob, your characters sure do give a bunch of speeches. And that was another thing where I was like, oh, big surprise that your characters give speeches. And I was like, yeah, apparently when I create a fictional world, I still manage to create characters who give speeches. So part of that was just laughing at myself, like can't help myself. And yeah, partly I just love, like, apparently all these people come who are in almost like, what is this conflict? Bobby seems like he's like a bass player in a punk band, kind of, who works in a bakery, but then he has some sort of weird conflict resolution skill.
Yeah.
And like the others just see him out in the alley and there's a whole crowd and he's like doing whatever. And like, there's like almost like a liturgy or a ritual of how what he does with people, and it's all at first it seems shifty. Like, is he a dealer? Like, what? I just, yeah, I really like that, and I think it'd be really funny. I was thinking, I have a sense that he might write a self-help book called "You Just Got Bobby Freelance," which is like his 9 rules for living. So that might be sitting in the old computer. Who knows?
Oh, I would love to read that. The characters have this, I think for mostly all of them, there's this really interesting kind of juxtaposition between joy and freedom and also pain, heartache. Someone that comes to mind is you have this character Borns, who is like this larger than life, very like vivacious person, and yet when you hear about his history, he has like this really difficult, sad childhood.
Whew.
Just an interesting interplay there.
Yeah, and how he grows up alone, so he makes this vow that he's going to have a house. He's going to counter that, and then his kid would like a little. His kid might be a little bit of an introvert, and this to him is just DEFCON. It's DEFCON 1 or DEFCON 5. It's like, this is crises. This isn't what we taught him.
Mm-hmm.
And this moment when Heen is like, I never considered the downside to being Born's kid.
Mm.
Like, all his good intentions and all of his gregarious, it's all a party. Well, what if one of his kids is like, yeah, no, it's like, it's kind of suffocating. And once again, didn't see any of that until it's happening in the story. And then I'm like, oh, Born, there's like a complexity here. And Borges is like, no, not good.
Yeah.
Bad. Terrible. We didn't teach him this. Yeah.
You have this world that you're creating and potential to go infinite. You could go anywhere, and that's the beauty of it, because you're in this sort of intergalactic construct. But also there's this beauty that you choose to center most of the book on Furus, and it's this really kind of, I don't know, for me, I felt like it's a really embodied place where every character that you meet, even minor characters, they all seem to be really connected with what they're doing. Like there's all these different, there's the restaurant and and there's soccer.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting to me that you center it on a place with particular people. What is it about Furus that brings out this change in Heen, and why did you want to focus specifically on this planet?
Yeah, right. Because, like, think about your Jake life and those spaceship moments for you. Was it those people in that place, or was it somehow something within you was ready? Like, are the people on Furus different than other planets? Hmm. Or is Heen in enough pain, or is he numb? Is he almost played out the numbness enough that when that began to emerge in the story, like, wait, is Furus different? He keeps saying Furus is different. Is it? Because there's something about, I'm sure you have friends like me who you've known from way back, who, if you get together with them, same jokes, same stories, they're wearing the same hoodie, and they're fine, it works. And yet you started out with them in school, in the neighborhood, maybe in your own home, and you're like, oh my God, that was like 5 Jakes ago. Mm-hmm. Or you're leader in a community. Why can some people hear something year after year after year and just, it seems to completely unaffect them? And then all of a sudden one day they're like, wait, Jake, do you realize? And you're like, yeah. I've been talking about that for for a while, or like why we suddenly grasp something or wake up to it, or is it because these radically different people showed up, or is it because consciousness is such a such a great mystery at the heart of the human experience, because it's like, wow, and then he gets to hurt us, and these people really, but none of them seem to be thinking that this is anything other than a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of them are like, oh, well, now you're on Furus, this is how we do things here. They don't they don't have any sense that this is anything different. It's the bakery.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going about our life. It's like when I surf, oftentimes, well, just a couple days ago, dolphins come through,
Mm-hmm.
and every time it does something to me. But the last thing a dolphin is doing is like, hey, I'm a dolphin, check this out. You know what I mean? It's just dolphining.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a mind structure that is standing outside of it going, hey, look what we're doing here.
Yeah.
When people use like words like creativity, it probably isn't. And this thing's out of the box, it probably isn't. The box is still running the show. People who are courageous would never use the word. Your most generous friends would never, or your people who live with just deep, give you all sorts of hope, wouldn't use the word. So they're like, the word is a series of thoughts and concepts. They're free from that. It's clear up in there, up in that old head.
Yeah.
So I love how the Furus are just, he encounters, he's so used to standing at a distance from his everything. And these people don't. They're just present here, seeing what it is and what's happening.
I feel like that's in a lot of ways been my own journey as well. And it's just really cool to hear you describe it in that way, because I just realized how, for a lot of my life, in the tradition that I grew up in, and just analyzing and then realizing, oh, it's just here, just live, that's it. Just do it, have fun.
Yes. Yeah. Clearing up the mind from its tendency to wage war with reality. This should be this. They should be this. They shouldn't have. Why did she? And the mind just revs and races and tortures itself with all this suffering when a clear, cleaned up mind is just present to what is. That happened. Here we are.
Yeah.
What did we learn? What's happening now? How fascinating we're all here.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you. This has been such a it's a real gift. I'm just really grateful, and I'm really I
loved your questions.
Thank you. I had so much fun reading it. It's been really fun feeling like, like I said, you really invite all of us to be a part of all of this. And so thank you again. This is another level of that, just allowing us to participate. But it's your journey, your work. It's this, but it's been a lot to a lot of people, and we're still along for the ride, and we love it. So
isn't it fun that we get to? Isn't it marvelous? I mean, seriously, we could just keep going. Did you have I thought you had a selfish / not selfish question.
Well, the Bobby Freelance, that was the selfish question, because I'm like, unless you've read the book, you might know what I'm talking about. Even if you have read the book, you might not know what I'm talking about. But I love those blink and you'll miss it moments, because they're just, I don't care if it doesn't have larger meaning. It's so great to just have it. It's like, hey, that's just happening in the background, and we're just going to put that there. And that's the fun of it too. It's like, hey, enjoy it.
If Bobby Freelance did a self-help book, would you read it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay. At one point, Heen makes a passing reference to his mechanic Gunsick, which is like a deep cut.
Yeah.
If Gunsick wrote a brief pamphlet called On Flying, like a nod to Stephen King's On Writing book, which was just his observations about technology and aesthetics,
Yes.
Or we find out that Bourne's wife is a doctor, and that's why he works in a bakery, because she's like, okay, if we're going to be together and you want to have kids, then you're going to have to like pick them up from school. So, because I got a doctor thing I'm doing. When you go to be one of her patients, she actually gives you this short book you have to read, which is her understanding of health, which is called How We Health. Because for her, health is a verb that you're actually in charge of, and she's merely helping you learn to listen to your body. So she does this whole thing where I'm not even going to meet with you until I know that you understand how I see this. So if people had a short book called How We Health.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, this is why you're going into like a whole new dimension, because you're able to Rob Bell the world the way you always have, but now you just have more. There's just this new like color and this new sort of frame, and it's infinite, and it always has been, but you're just giving yourself permission to really like fly, and I love that. It's just so fun to watch.
When we were kids, and people had go-karts, and there was always that kid who had figured out how to take the governor off the engine of his go-kart, which meant that it just burned like all of its gas up right away, but it was way faster than everybody's. So there's moments when you like figure out how to get the governor off.
Yeah.
It's quite enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I'm here for it. Really grateful just on behalf of Aldea, the community, for just sharing just what you have, and really just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm sending love to you and your community.
Thank you.
Perhaps
Happy
we'll meet
Halloween.
up at some point. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, that'd
Love
be awesome.
Great.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.